When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed close to the sea. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came forward, and seeing him, fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come lay your hands on her that she may get well and live." He went off with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed upon him. Now there was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. She had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors and had spent all that she had. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "If I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured." Immediately, her flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Jesus, aware at once that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who has touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to Jesus, "You see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what had happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of this affliction." While he was still speaking, people from the whole synagogue official's house arrived and said, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" Disregarding the message that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, he caught sight of a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and said to them, "Why this commotion and weeping? This child is not dead, but asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took along the child's father and mother and those who were with him and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, rose immediately and walked around. At that, they were utterly astounded. He gave them strict orders that no one should know this and said that she should be given something to eat. Hello and welcome to Closer Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father Bayer, your host, and we're glad that you could join us today. Jairus' daughter and the hemorrhagic woman. Really very interesting. It's a tale of two hearts. It's a tale of two beliefs. I'd like to start with the hemorrhagic woman. This story is very powerful. When the hemorrhagic woman says, "If I can just touch his cloak, I shall be healed," she realized the power that emanated from the Son of God. If I can just, I don't need to ask any favors. I know what God can do. And I just need to touch the cloak, and I know what God can do. And of course, we know the story. Immediately, her flow of blood dried up. The scriptures say she had taken everything she said and seen doctor after doctor after doctor for 12 years. She was broke. She had no more money, and yet she was still hemorrhaging. This particular gospel, I was down in Honduras with Sister Breege McKenna. Many of you may have heard Sister Breege. She's a religious sister who has the gift of healing, who herself was healed. She has a book called Miracles Do Happen. And we were giving a retreat for the Catholic Universities of Honduras, which is 9 different campuses throughout the country. So we had about 1,000 people on retreat, and she and I gave the retreat, obviously for both of us with an interpreter. But in the evening, after my prayer, after my conference, I exposed the Blessed Sacrament. For those of you who don't know, when we do benediction, we take this long cape-like thing and wrap it around our shoulders, and we take the cape and we take the monstrance and we do the blessing like that. After I did the blessing, I took the cape and I wrapped it around the bottom of the monstrance, and I let the cape drape over the front of the altar. And I said, the lady said, if I can but just touch his cloak, I shall be healed. And I invited everyone to take what's in their heart, in their prayers, and bring it to the Lord, touch his cloak, and ask for the healing that we desire. I did that at 7:30 at night. I left at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the line was still out of the door. And people were just very emotional. They had a chance to touch God. They had a chance to touch his cloak. Now, the next day, they had, in this retreat house, is up a mountain, and we had adoration out in this open field. We were on the mountain, they were down below. And I took the monstrance and I went down, and that was kind of dangerous, big monstrance, loose rocks. But anyway, I walked around and let people touch the monstrance. As I was walking, there was a young child, 3, 4, 5 years old. Don't know what the affliction was, but the parents had him in a little plastic chair. And they each had their hand on his arm because he was, I don't know, seizuring or something, going back and forth and kind of out of control. And I don't know, the Lord told me, take the monstrance and just place it on the child's head. And I did. And immediately, the child became calm. We had the adoration. We went to supper. We get a phone call from Children's Hospital in Tegucigalpa. One of the persons there had a 12-year-old child with cancer that they told him to take home because there was nothing more that they could do. They were there the night before to touch the cloak. They were there for the adoration on the mountainside. They went back to the hospital to pick up their child. And the doctor said, we don't know what happened. This child is cancer-free. They were going to take their child home to die. And now this child is cancer-free. The story of the hemorrhagic woman is a story of people who believe. They know what the power of God is. And please, don't confuse the power of God with winning the Powerball, okay? They know what the power of God is. And so these are the ones who in the midst of life on life's terms decide that only God can change the situation or only God can change their circumstances. The marriage isn't right. I don't know what's going on. We're on two different pages. We're not together. Our intimacy is a thing of the past. I can feel it, that we're heading down the wrong path. Really. Can you tell me a good counselor? Can you give me a good medication? Can you do whatever? Have you tried adoration? You and your husband go to adoration. You just sit. Tell God, we're not on the same page. We need to be different. I need to become what I'm supposed to be in this marriage. And help me to become what I need to be. And if both people ask, or even if just one asks, God takes care of us. God hears those prayers. You may not have the opportunity to go and physically touch the cloak like we did, but God hears. I did this with a junior high religious ed class. And the biggest thing about adoration with junior high kids, 12, 13, 14 years old is, why don't they give me a leash to keep them still, all right? But I did that. And I let the kids come forward. It was amazing. You have no idea what these kids are going through today, whether it's bullying, whether it's social media pressures, whether it's things at home, whether it's things at school, whether it's doubts they have about themselves, whether it's struggles they're having with things. Let these kids come forward and touch the cloak. It was powerful. It was emotional. After the hour and 15 minutes were up, we had to say, okay, it's time. And there were kids still waiting. We let them all come up at one time and touch the cloak. It's that ability to have a touch with God that we think is out of our control. Many of us, born and raised Catholic, we've heard about Lourdes, we've heard about Fatima, we've heard about Medjugorje, we've heard about Garabandal and Kibeho, and all these different miracles throughout the world. And we say, gee, I wish I could go there. I wish this could happen. I wish that could happen. You want to travel around the world to verify the miracles of the Blessed Mother. For most of us, right down the street, there's an adoration chapel. And we, like the hemorrhagic woman, can simply go and touch his cloak and touch the mantras and kiss his feet and bring what it is that we've had for a year, 12 years, or all of our life, and know that our faith can save us. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Hi, I'm Father Jeff Baye from Closer Walk Catholic Communications. Thank you for being here today, and a special thanks for the support that you give us. First of all, your prayerful support we so desperately need, and also your financial support. We are donor-driven, and that is what keeps us on the air today. As you well know, the truth is in great demand and in very short supply, and mainstream media is not going to bring you the truth of the Gospels of our Lord Jesus Christ because that's not socially acceptable and it's not politically correct. Certainly we all realize that when this life journey's over, we don't stand before the Supreme Court, we stand before the throne of God. Therefore, with great clarity and great charity, to pronounce the truth of the gospel is important. Your prayers, your financial support enables us to do that. So we thank you, and may God bring you closer in your walk with the Lord each day. God bless you. While they were still speaking, people from the synagogue official's house arrived and said, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" Disregarding the message, that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue officials, he caught sight of a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and weeping? This child is not dead, but asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took the child's father and mother with him, and those who were with him. He entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, arose immediately and walked around, and they were utterly astounded. He gave them strict orders that no one should know this, and said to them that she should be given something to eat. Hello and welcome back to Closer Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father Bayer, your host. We're glad that you came back. Hemorrhagic woman knew all I got to do is touch Jesus' cloak and I'll be healed. The synagogue officials, family, and friends didn't believe in the power of God. When he said, "Oh, this child's not dead, but asleep," they laughed at him and ridiculed him. So he put him out. And then he went in and he had told Jairus, "Don't trust me, just have faith." And of course, he tells the little girl, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And the idea of what it means to have faith. And many people don't believe that God can do things, small things. I had a conversation today, and I was speaking to a friend in New York. He said, "Man, I've been praying for you. We've heard they got tornadoes down there, and they've had all these alerts and all these high winds and everything. Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." I said, "I just said a prayer to St. Joseph and asked St. Joseph to protect us." And it was interesting because I remember very vividly as a child, I had an aunt who was a sister of St. Joseph, my grandmother's daughter. And over at my grandmother's house, they always had a piece of crumpled up aluminum foil on the kitchen counter. And inside that aluminum foil was a piece of stale bread. It had come from the St. Joseph altars that they did in honor of St. Joseph. And whenever the weather got really bad, my grandmother unwrapped the foil, cut off some crumbs of that bread, threw it out, said a prayer to St. Joseph, and we were fine. And my point is not to get everyone in Tornado Alley to get St. Joseph's bread. My point is to take your faith in God into the ordinariness of life. Asking God to do the ordinary things. And people say, "I'm not going to pray about that. God's got so many things going on with wars and famine and water shortages. God's not worried about my piddly little stuff." Let me ask you, is there anything that your child would ever ask you that your child needs, not wants, but is there anything that your child needs that if you can provide for them, you would refuse them? The answer to that is no. Then we need to look at what our notion of God is and how we fit into God's plan of salvation. And that is, does God really care what happens to us? Well, if God really cared what happened to us, Why do you have all these sick children? You see the Shriners commercials, you see St. Jude commercials. If God allows all that stuff to happen, I mean, these are kids. These kids didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't risky behavior. They weren't doing drugs and, hanging out with guns. Why are these children sick and why are these children suffering? And, if God cares about us, well, I think that God either wants us to turn to Him and let our child's faith in Him save us, or He wants a child back. And is there anything that's so bad about an innocent child going to God? Yeah, there's a lot bad with it because they were my child. I miss them and I love them. Got it. Got it. Never going to argue that point, that there were so many things you had dreamed about you didn't have a chance to do. But I had an incident one time, and it happened in confession. It was a mother that I knew. She had 10 children, and she lost her 11th pregnancy in about the 7th month. And she wanted to go to confession, and she was weeping. And she said, Father, I'm just so sad. She said, the other day, she said, I was in my room and I was all by myself. And I don't know how you get in your room with 10 kids all by yourself, but she was. And she said, I was just crying and my husband came in and said, what's wrong? She said, I missed the baby. I never got a chance to hold my baby. I never got a chance to feed my baby. I never got a chance to do this. And she said her husband looked at her and says, baby, we got one in heaven. Now we need to get the other 10 there. That's someone who understands. And I know that doesn't replace all the joy and all the plans. But regardless of what we do for our children and with our children, if we're not working for their salvation, we're not doing what God asked us to do when He gave us this child. And so the idea that as we go through life, we take the ordinariness of life and we handle it in faith. How many of us in raising children, and most parents think it's so wonderful. These children are so cute, and they dress them up, and they get all these pictures taken, and in everybody's refrigerator all over the state. And then when they turn 13, they would say, "Whew, I'd give them to the first gypsies that come along, right?" They at 13, why God made puberty, I'll never know, but they know so much more than I know, and all that. And that's a time where in the ordinariness of life, we let our faith save us. And if we've done our job, and we have prepared our children to know God and to want to love God and to want to be pleasing in the sight of God, if we've done our job as parents and faith formation, then at that point, God steps in and changes the hearts who've taken a wrong turn. I had a very powerful experience. A friend of mine, very devoted to Saint Therese of Lisieux, and he'd been to Lisieux, and he had these prayer cards from Lisieux, and he had given them to his children. And just a couple days before his son, he gave him the cards. He said, keep us in your car and ask, Saint Therese to take care of you. 3 days later at 4:30 in the morning, they wake him up. And it's a horrible one-car accident. He's not expected to live. They're scared of brain damage. They're scared of internal tissue damage. Both legs are broken, the back is broken, and everything like that. He calls me. I happened to be in Rome. We started saying Mass for him. Got home, visited his son. Wonderful, sweet kid. Just the other day, he decided to go see the car. Now, the car looked like scrap iron. I mean, it was so mangled, you could not even tell what kind of car it was. But he was able to open the door. And he sent me the picture. In the midst of this rubble, and I can't tell you what I was looking at, but in the midst of this rubble is a picture of St. Therese of Lisieux, big as you please, sitting in the middle of the car. The point is God does, God can, and God will intervene in human history. And for the ordinariness of life, how many times do we go to God for ourselves and for the people that we love? And the question is whether or not we believe God can do it. The hemorrhagic woman believed that God could do it. The synagogue officials, family, and friends thought, it's a hopeless case. No one can do anything. And the Lord walks in and shows that with God, all things are possible. And if we really, really took the ordinariness of life, and like I said, I'm not talking about Powerball. I'm talking about the things that we need in life, the things that we ask God to give us in order that we might know Him, love Him, serve Him, be there for Him. Those things in life, do we bring them to God, or do we think I'm in control? I studied, for 20 years before I got my master's, another 3 years before I got my doctorate. Became a priest, been a priest 45 years as of last May. And so many times I get called into a situation, I have no idea what I'm doing, what I'm going to say, what's happened. I simply say the Lord's Prayer and say, God, I'm going in, cover me. Try that. Whatever it is, whatever the situation, whatever the circumstances, God, I'm going in, cover me. Those are the people who believe that He can do it, He does do it, and He will do it for His faithful believers. Thanks for being with us, and may each day bring you closer in your walk with the Lord. God bless. Hi, I'm Father Jeff Baye from Closer Walk Catholic Communications. Join us here on this station each week as we strive to bring you the gospel message with great clarity and great charity, and may God bless you in your walk each day.